In this scene of Silence of the Lambs, Clarice and Matthews are furthering their investigation into Buffalo Bill by visiting the body of a victim at a funeral home. The director, Jonathan Demme, in this scene is trying to get us to think that Clarice is looked down upon and has to prove herself to belong in a man's business at the time, while also making us feel like we're in her shoes through the point of view shots, making us feel even more sympathetic for her. The beginning of this clip sets the mood about the sensitivity about the whole situation. Being an FBI detective, you need to block all that out and focus on your job, which later in the scene, Clarice will struggle with. Entering the room full of tall cops that are all men, you immediately see that Clarice is shrunk by the size of all these men in the room, foreshadowing how much power she just has in this room. In this part of the scene, as the sheriff and Jack Matthews begin to talk about the whole situation, just look how the director closes up on Clarice's face, involving her in the conversation.
Perkins, Jack Crawford, FBI. Special Agent Terry, Agent Starling. We appreciate being invited to your jurisdiction.
I didn't call you. That was somebody from the state attorney's office.
The director wants us to think that Clarice is definitely involved in this conversation. Her face is right in the middle of the frame, and it looks like she's very apparent in this image.
We'll extend you every courtesy, but right now,
Sheriff.
Now, if we look at the rule of thirds in this shot, Clarice is over the shoulder in the background of Jack Matthews. She's on the bottom right corner of the rule of thirds. The director wants us to be aware that she is in the background of this image. She's being left out of this conversation for a reason. It looks as if she's trying to listen in on the conversation if we move on. The director beautifully sets up that third wheel kind of feeling for Clarice being left out of this conversation that she should be in.
The sex crime has certain aspects.
Now, Clarice is even more out of focus than she was before, showing the power that Jack Matthews has in the room, and how little power Clarice has now. Now Matthews and the sheriff will leave the room, leaving Clarice all alone in a room full of the cops.
Just as soon discuss it in private. You know what I mean?
But now, Clarice is obviously being talked about, and she realizes this, putting her back in focus and showing her true emotion on how she feels about this. Clarice is now all alone in a room full of cops. As the panning occurs, it's like a never-ending array of tall cops staring down on her, just showing how much power she has in this room. Outnumbered, especially with the pan, it makes it seem like there are more cops than there actually are. This foreshadows how alone she really is at this whole investigation. Nobody believes that she's a real cop in a man's business. When the director then shifts to a close-up on her face, she turns away and hides her face. Clarice is now hiding her face, feeling so uncomfortable that she needs to hide who she really is. A really powerful moment, which makes you, the viewer, feel very sympathetic for her. It's kind of like they're shunning her away from the job, which triggers emotions that make you feel very sympathetic for her. This also leads to why she's doing this job. She's always reminded in flashbacks of why she does this job. She then proceeds to look into a funeral procession that is in progress. With her job, she needs to hide her past and focus on the task at hand. But she can't hide her past in this moment. She saw a glimpse and opens the door to relive it. The extremely heavy music in the background is reflecting all the heavy emotion that Clarice is feeling. The framing of the shot is also her caught between two realities, her own reality in the middle, then the actual on the outside. Within the rule of thirds, there are a lot of objects that are bringing Clarice back to her past of when her father died. The director is really cramming all of these objects in our head, showing that Clarice is very trapped in this alternate reality. Flashbacks like these are what give Clarice the confidence boost to move on in her job. She needs this to remind her of what she's doing this for. Her mind is really wandering in this scene, which makes the next part even more hectic than it actually is.
Oscar, fetch Dr. Akers from the chapel.
Yes, sir. Starling, we're back here.
Tell
It's like snapping someone out of the dream. All the quick shots really makes it feel like there's more action that is actually going on. And Matthews really startles Clarice out of it. And the chaos ensues with Matthews making the call and all the people panning through the room. And so many things going on in that tiny room. Clarice now, after that moment of transformation, asserts her authority in this scene with the overwhelming amount of cops that are men by asking them to show respect for the body.
Excuse me, gentlemen, you officers and gentlemen, listen here now. There's things we need to do for her.
The director backs away to a medium shot compared to the close-up earlier in the clip, which shows her confidence boost and her ability to express her power in this scene. So much noise in the room, and her ability to shut it all up is an impressive amount of authority that she just displayed. Clarice is a woman who is fighting for her right to stay in the job, to really make an impact in a man's business. She gets knocked down throughout this scene, but she comes right back up with even more strength than before. This makes the audience root for her even more.
Thank you.
Okay, good.